Welcome back. All right, now where were we? Okay, so let's move on from components and let's set up the inventory of your system. Let's look over here in the inventory panel. Now, every system obviously needs a core to operate, so by default, it's got one loaded in right here. And if you click on it, then you can adjust its properties here in the right side pane. First, you'll need to label your core with the same name as the core you're going to use. My core's name is Primary Core. A name can't end with a hyphen. You can find out what the name of your core is by cycling through its main display pages on the front panel, or by using the Q-SYS configurator. You can also rename your core with the configurator, and for more information on how to use that tool, check out our configurator tutorial on qsctraining.com. Next, you can label the location of your core, and this can be anything you like, as it's purely for organizational purposes in the software. Maybe you want to make it reflect where it actually is in your place, front of house, and boom, there it is, front of house in your inventory as well. You're going to want to select which model of the core you're using. You can select whether or not you'll be using a backup core by changing this is redundant field to yes. And then you can also rename the backup core you're going to be choosing. And once again, boom, you see that reflected over here in your inventory. Now, if you have an I/O card installed in your core, you can specify which one that is over here. Let's say you've got a mic line in, and once again, you can see that that's reflected in your inventory. You can also specify the audio tracks that your core can run. By default, every core can run up to 16 simultaneous stored media tracks, although you can upgrade this to 64 or 128 when you order it. Network receive buffer lets you add a fraction of a millisecond to your buffer to keep the audio synced. And then here in your clocking area, you can change the sample rate for your clock, and you can also change the source for your clock as well as the domain for it. Now, you may have realized that there's no component in the schematic that represents your core, but that's because your core is always a part of the design. But if you want to, you can grab the status component for your core and drag it into the schematic. Simply go to your inventory and drag this status component and drop it into your schematic. And look, over here it even goes empty, so you know you've already taken that somewhere else. So let's double click this component to look at its control panel. Oh, that's pretty big. Let's kind of zoom out there. Now this bar here is the status bar, and it'll be green to indicate that your core is good. It's grayed out right now on mine because I'm not really connected to an active system. We're just in design mode right now. Oh, this ID button here is pretty cool. This is a feature on both the core and the I/O frame. If you click this button in the software, then the LED screen on the actual core or the I/O frame will start flashing. So maybe if you're not sure which I/O frame you're working on in the software, you can click this to identify it in the real world. And it works the other way too. You can press the ID button on the front of your core or I/O frame, and then this icon will start flashing in the software. Let's see, you have some other options in this control panel. You can monitor the clock, the temperature. Ooh, this audio file sync button will light up to let you know that your backup core is totally synced with your primary core. Oh, you can toggle between your primary and backup cores by selecting the Go Active button on either of them, and these LEDs will tell you which one is active or on standby. There's another more advanced clocking panel here that you can activate. If you click on the core status component, then over here you've got this verbose option, which you change to yes. And now we've got another section of our control panel, which gives you some more control over the clocking right here. So that's your core. Now let's add an I/O frame to this as well. Let's zoom in a little bit here. The inventory represents physical items that are actually a part of your design, and you can add items by clicking this little plus button. Now that'll bring you to 3 new categories: amplifiers, loudspeakers, and peripherals. We're going to go under peripherals and select an I/O frame. And then we can close this inventory panel. Now we've got an I/O frame right here. Just like the core, you can adjust the I/O frame with its properties pane over here in the right side panel. You can change the name and the location, whether or not you have a backup of it. You're going to have to specify which I/O cards are in your I/O frame. This doesn't come automatically detected when they install it at QSC. So you're going to want to select. Let's say you have 2 mic line ins, and maybe you've got 2 data port outs. So really, this is whatever you ordered it at. And the I/O frame also has a status component that you can drag into the schematic so that you can monitor it. So Those are the basics of how to use the Q-SYS Designer software. You should really stick around and watch the next few tutorials. We're going to cover things like how to wire your components together and familiarize you with all of the different components in the schematic library. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.